love that. I love that theme, that coffee brewing. It looks like a mocha latte.
That is cool. That's really.
I love the tune. I love the trumpet. I'm a trumpet guy. So anyway, welcome to another episode of CX Behind the Scenes. I'm your host, as I always am, Carl Reese, and it's great to have you here with us today. We have an especially insightful program lined up, but before we dive in, I'd like to share a little bit about the CXBS webcast. Today marks our 23rd episode. Can you believe that? And if you've missed any of the previous ones, don't despair. They're all available on the Question Pro website at questionpro.com. As far as I am concerned, I've been a CX professional for over 20 years, primarily in the B2B space, a little bit of B2C. Since 2004, I've been running a consulting practice called Horizon CX, which is a business partner of Question Pro. And my main offering is an online instructor-led hands-on course called CX Pro, which focuses on the fundamentals of customer experience management. And there's also a companion book called CX Pro, a practical guide for the new customer experience manager that's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other book sources. Both the course and the book provide a solid foundation in the principles of CX for both newcomers and people engaged in the field. And to date, over 170 people have been trained and certified as a CX Pro. This certification helps participants not only understand the principles of customer experience management, but also effectively leverage technology that can achieve your business goals, such as the Question Pro solutions. And while technology is a crucial tool in CX, it's the combination of technical skills and a solid understanding of CX principles that drive real results. The CX Pro course is designed to help you manage both, ensuring that you can fully apply technology and leverage it to enhance your CX strategies. And just last month, I think it was last month, I published a second book entitled CX Pro Beyond the Basics, Advanced Insights for Customer Experience Professionals. And that was written by 16 contributing co-authors, each of them focusing on a specific aspect of CX that they have deep knowledge and experience in. And that book is also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other online book sources. As always, these monthly webcasts are here to help you learn and advance in your CX career and your CX knowledge. And I encourage you to engage by submitting questions within the chat, because we like to make these sessions interactive. And with that, I'd like to turn it over momentarily here to Raj to give us a little bit of an introduction to Question Pro for those who are listening and aren't yet familiar. They should be, but hopefully they will be after what you tell them. Go ahead.
Cool. Thanks, Carl. Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Raj. I'm with Question Pro. So for those of you that don't know, Question Pro is a full-service CX platform solution provider. We've actually got tools across CX, market research, and employee experience. But specifically within CX, we've got a number of solutions that can help clients understand their customer experience better. We've got a number of tools to allow you to capture feedback from customers across a number of channels, then analyze that feedback using a number of different analytics tools, reporting and dashboards, and then a number of tools to go close the loop on customer feedback, right? So that's important when you get feedback from customers, acting on it, whether that means connecting directly with customers to resolve issues or putting in processes to go fix poor customer experiences. We've got tools that can help you do that. And then also we've got a journey management platform that I'm responsible for that we feel is kind of the important piece of customer experience. Our philosophy is that to really understand your customers, you need to understand the journeys first. Our journey management platform can do that, and it's integrated in with the broader Question Pro suite to allow our clients to go drive actions on what they learned. So that's an overview of Question Pro. I know last time I did this, I teased our conference that we had a month or so ago, and being here with Tom. Before I turn it back over to you guys, I do want to congratulate Tom on an amazing customer experience conference that he hosted at Michigan State a few weeks ago. It was actually the week after our X Day in Austin. So I went straight from ours to his, and our conference was amazing, but Tom and what he did blew me away. And it was another amazing week and a lot of great innovations that he introduced that I'm sure we'll hear more about. So I'm happy to be here with both of you.
I think you hit on it there, Raj. It's the two of the best conferences that anyone could have gone to this year.
Totally.
If they missed it, well, too bad, but there's always next year, right?
Yep.
As we do in every episode, before we get started, we'd like to run a poll related to today's topic, which is around the concept of connecting your CX strategy to your business. And so let's start there. Paulina, can we run our poll question? And the question is, what do you think is the biggest reason CX initiatives fail to deliver the desired impact in organizations? Why is that the case? I'm going to do it. I always do it. I like to do it right on my phone with that QR code. I want to become part of this process as well. I have my own feelings about this. I see a bunch of folks coming in here. We'll give a few minutes to get a few more participants. All righty, I think we're getting all we're going to get here today. Okay, so what do you think is the biggest reason CX initiatives fail to deliver the desired impact in organizations? Lack of leadership commitment, inadequate measurement, failure to align strategy with business objectives, organizational resistance or to cultural change, or insufficient resources dedicated to CX initiatives. So that's interesting. Culture isn't weighing in here very heavily. Inadequate measurement. I think everybody believes. Sounds like we have sufficient measurements here. Interesting. I'll say more about that in a minute here. But let's begin here. My special guest today is Dr. Tom DeWitt. And Tom is the founder and academic program director for the Master of Science in Customer Experience Management degree program at the Broad College of Business at Michigan State University. And in that role, he's dedicated to advancing customer experience management globally through a variety of initiatives, including monthly industry roundtable discussions, hosting biannual industry conferences, and delivering academic programs. For more than a decade, Tom DeWitt has provided customer experience management solutions to organizations and audiences around the world through consulting, workshops, and presentations. Before joining academia, Tom enjoyed a career in the hospitality industry where he served in senior management roles in the USA and in Asia. Welcome, Tom, to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So beyond that somewhat brief introduction, is there anything else you'd like to add or share with our today?
Don't get me started. I won't shut up.
Either personal, professional, humanistic perspective. I know it's not hard to get you to talk, Tom. I know that part.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure a lot like you and your listeners. Yeah, my career in customer experience started when I was a busboy at the age of 14 in a restaurant. So I learned quickly how my actions or my inactions could make people happier or miserable. So yeah, it was a career in hospitality that really I think fueled my curiosity about what was going on. What's going on in the minds of consumers as well as the people that were serving them, and that dynamic was so interesting to me, and really framed the research that I did back when I did research as an academia, and continues to drive me until this day. So
That's an interesting perspective, because when you say that, I think back to that's probably what was a kind of trigger for me to get into customer experience. I started in a hospitality scenario as well. So you start working with customers, you start watching behaviors, you start getting impressions, and you kind of tuck these things in the back of your mind, and then later years they start coming back to you. That's really an interesting perspective. Thanks for sharing that. You know, because of what you are doing today, I thought let's begin by just talking a little bit about your current work at MSU and how that came
sure.
about. Going from practitioner of customer experience to now an academic role. I'd like to hear a little more about
Yeah,
that.
sure. So yeah, I was actually on the faculty. I was a tenured faculty member at the University of Hawaii. Had a beautiful house that we built on the cliffside on the ocean, panoramic views. But I wasn't really content in my work there. I knew there was more. So when I went looking for a job, I saw this vacancy in the marketing department at MSU. And MSU is where I did my undergrad and met my wife. So the thought of finishing my career at my undergraduate institution, even though it required living in Michigan in the winter, was really exciting. And it was during the interview process that they were working on an initiative in customer experience, and they wanted to know if I was interested in getting involved. So my research had always been in the realm of services marketing, serve qual, service recovery, and so forth. And I had a small consulting practice, which I it was kumopa'a. Kumopa'a in Hawaiian means basically to be built from the roots up, and brand experience management. That was really before I was even aware of the industry of CX. So when I got to MSU, I kept asking about this initiative, and the initiative had stalled. The person they had working on it didn't have time for it, so I offered to head it up, and I had a plan in my mind. I took about a week putting together a 1, 3, and 5-year plan, which, believe it or not, didn't include a master's degree, but it included things like industry conferences and workshops and so forth. And it was in planning for our first industry conference in spring of 2019 that I came to realize the cupboard was bare in terms of skills in CX. People had seemingly arisen into leadership roles from very different backgrounds, leadership roles in CX from very divergent backgrounds. And it was really clear that they didn't possess the relevant skill sets to be successful in those roles. And then talking to industry people, the term that came up more often than not was the industry's fragmented in terms of skill sets, fragmented in terms of how they define CX. Oftentimes CX was a call center, or it was data analytics, or but it wasn't a comprehensive business function. So I made the audacious promise, standing on stage in front of, back then it was a little over 100 people. I'd begged to come to my first conference, and I made the promise that we were going to create a master's degree in customer experience management. And that's the key thing. It's no longer a customer experience. It's making it a managed process. So I made the claim that we were going to do that. At the same time, had created this entity, CXM at MSU, with a tagline, putting management into the customer experience. So that was spring of 2019. After research and going through the approval process, we launched the master's degree in spring or May of 2022. It took 3 years, the approval process and planning. And we just graduated our first 2 cohorts in April and August of 2024. And I think in total, 78 students enrolled or have graduated from the program, and here we are, rocking and rolling. And I think the curriculum we've created reflects a foundation and a framework for the industry that I've been told by industry is very robust and unparalleled in its form. So it's been a little tiring, but it's very fulfilling, I mean, and then to stand up on the stage 2 weeks ago and presiding over the conference we had with all the support from industry. We had 30 students there, 6 alumni. I think there were 10 faculty from the program who had flown in from all over the country. Very, very rewarding. And for your listeners, just to let them know, this program is online, delivered completely online, and it's designed for industry professionals. So all of our students are employed, most of whom work in the CX industry or customer success or patient experience. And we've had many senior employees in the industry, including 6 vice presidents of CX enrolled in the program. So that's in a nutshell. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, man.
Yeah, very cutting edge program. And to my knowledge, I don't think there may be some certificate programs out there, but I don't think there's anything quite like what you're offering at MSU.
No, I mean, there are 2 programs in Spain. One at IE, that's pretty comprehensive, and I use their curriculum as an inspiration for ours as well. But the first in North America, I'm told there's at least one other new program, master's program, and another one in the works. But imitation is the best form of flattery, right? So
exactly.
We'll continue to do our job.
All right, so here I want to just reflect a little bit on that poll question here, because I thought it was rather interesting. Because as I answered the poll, I answered failure. I answered lack of leadership commitment to customer centricity, and I say that kind of based on my experience in the corporate world, which ended in 2014. So I guess what I'm thinking here is that the business leaders, they're aware of customers, and no business leader will ever say customers aren't important. So they always put their name on the, yes, sign me up for that, right? But, many still just look at revenues, profit growth over truly understanding customer experience. And so I guess my first question to you is, in your view, why is that? And what are the consequences of that? How do we get leaders to shift that mindset? And I've always had this. I've always had this feeling. This is now my current day feeling. It wasn't back when I was in corporate, but my feeling is I would only want to work for an organization as a CX professional where the leadership team was already baked into their DNA, that they already realized that, and I'm there to help them achieve that, rather than
wouldn't that be nice?
Rather than me being the one rolling that ball uphill, because we keep hearing these, sad stories about, leadership just doesn't understand. They're not buying in. They're not. Why is it up to me as a customer experience professional to convince you that this is important? If you don't believe it's important, as a sales professional at one point in my life, I can't sell you something you don't feel the need for. Why don't they feel the need for it? I'm sorry, I'm asking way too many questions in one.
No, it's all right. No, that's all right. Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? And actually, the first course in the degree program, which I teach, is based on that premise, Carl, because customer experience management should be a natural and intuitive extension of being a customer-centric organization, right? We would all agree on that. It shouldn't be something that is affixed to an organization that operates along functional lines and is really focused on rewarding product centric goals. But that's the world we live in. And it is extremely frustrating for people like you and me. And what I'm seeing in the industry, and this is why I responded to the question different than you, is what I'm seeing in the world is we've been trying over the past decade or so to educate the C-suite on what customer-centric goals should look like, on NPS, on CSAT, and so forth, and their importance. Not always being really good at linking those outcomes to the, and this is where the rubber hits the road, not being able to link those outcomes to the KPIs that the CEO and CFO and the other VPs were being evaluated on. And that's where the differences lie. And I think, what I've seen over the past few years is even a movement away from demonstrating the ROI of CX, which has been a top priority in the industry for a while, and to demonstrating the business case for CX. And that's where we finally come to, and what was kind of a high point of our conference in terms of topics. It's no longer enough to go in the C-suite and try to educate everyone on what we do, why we do it, how it impacts NPS, why that's important. Now it's going to the C-suite and saying, I found a way where I can save the company $5 million. I found a way how I can increase revenues by 20%, because those are the KPIs that everyone else is being evaluated on. And that's where our role is going to be in the future. So really, moving away from what you were talking about is now it's the inherent responsibility of CX leaders to understand the language of the C-suite. It's to, my good friend and industry colleague, Patty Soltis, it's educating CX leaders to understand the annual report and how CX impacts the KPIs in the annual report. How are we generating new business growth? How are we helping to reduce operating costs? So, building on that, and this is probably one of your previous questions, I think where the confusion lies is if you ask a leader of an organization on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being very customer centric and 1 being obviously not very customer centric at all, where would you put your organization? Most leaders are going to put their organization at around a 9. And the problem is there are misconceptions of what customer centricity is. And I think there's this oversimplification, this thought, well, we put the customer at the center of everything that we do. The customer is very important to us, but yet we measure our progress not based on customer satisfaction or customer loyalty. We base it on short-term financial goals. So yeah. I think there's this and that's the premise behind our whole discussion today, is the difference between saying you're customer centric and even having an empty chair at the table and say the customer's here. What would the customers say? Well, I can only imagine given what's being talked about in the C-suite, but and what it truly means to be, the difference between that and what it means to be truly customer centric as an organization.
I'm chuckling because there was a colleague of mine who did that very thing, went to a meeting and had an empty chair and said the customer's in that chair. And he got raked over the coals by management for doing such a thing. Why are you bringing customers into this discussion? They don't belong here.
Yeah, I know. It's our only reason. Well, and that's the other thing that's so perplexing to you and I is why don't people understand that their job and the jobs of everyone in this company depends on how well we meet the needs of the customer. And I know, and unless you can demonstrate that empirically, you're not going to get their attention. And maybe even then you won't, until you change And again, I feel the same way about employee engagement. Until you change how managers and leaders are evaluated and rewarded in their role, you're not going to change the way they feel about CX. So
Yeah, I mean, the thing, what I was getting at when I was saying this before was that it just seems to me that there's sufficient push on the part of a CX professional to getting that message to the senior leadership, right, team, but there's less of a pull from their end wanting to know and wanting to learn more. I mean, when you have your conferences, and this goes for any customer experience conference, I've yet to see a plethora of senior leaders attend these conferences. I mean, a lot of times conferences are attended by CX professionals because they want to hear what can I learn, what can I do next, how can I grow in this field. But there almost ought to be a special conference for senior leaders to
but I
really.
think, the way I think about it is they don't speak the same language. It's like me speaking Chinese to you. You're not going to understand the thing I'm saying. And that's why I'm saying, we can't continue to speak Chinese and just say it louder thinking they're going to understand. Until we go into C-suite and say, like I said before, I found a way I can save the company $5 million. Now, okay, you've got my attention, right? Because when you and I think CX every single day. We don't tend to think in financial. We don't tend to think like accountants or otherwise. But if we sit down and try to talk to an accountant, it's going to be really hard to have a conversation. But what I'm saying is now the responsibility is on CX leaders to educate them on the KPIs that those leaders are being evaluated on, because when they're going into meetings and when they're thinking every day, they're not, I guarantee you for most, the NPS score is or other measures of the quality of the customer experience are probably not the first thing on their plate. They're probably checking the stock price. They're checking other financial indicators, because their success or failure as a leader is not based on customer outcomes. They're based on financial outcomes. So until CX leaders can understand the connection between what they do and those financial outcomes, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Well, you mentioned NPS a couple of times, and I think maybe in some respects that kind of gets in the way, because back in the days when I was in corporate, it wasn't hard to sell that concept to senior leaders because it's very simple to understand. And they would glom onto something like that, and now they became focused on numbers in the same way they would be focused on revenues and profitability and market share and all that, and NPS. And if the NPS went from 50 to 40, it would be like, holy crap, what's happened over here, and what you're responsible for this, and why is this happening? So they always tried to use that kind of as a leverage point. I think sometimes we've gotten very carried away with that as a metric. It's become almost too popular and too used and abused in so many different instances, oversimplified. So
I mean, then the question was, okay, how can you and your department explain your impact on that number? So it came down to drivers. The reality is, and well, here's the other thing too, what we've learned about NPS is it's not always linked to financial outcomes. It's not always linked to customer loyalty. There are a lot of antecedents to that. I mean, as a customer, and even though every survey these days seems to start with that question, the willingness to recommend often doesn't come after the first visit. It's after cumulative, that's how loyalty is created, after cumulative satisfactory encounters. And each satisfactory encounter is a function of a set of evaluative criteria, right? So like when I go to Chili's and I pay my bill on the kiosk and they ask me the recommend question, I know it's coming, because it's, were you greeted promptly? It's about the food, it's about the cleanliness, it's about different dimensions of the experience, which is great. And the analysts at Chili's are measuring the weight of each one of those. And Yeah, there should also be a measure of the overall satisfaction of the encounter, because that's actually probably that's a better indicator and a more valid measure of my experience. The theoretical basis for willingness to recommend, it's based on I'm putting my personal reputation on the line and my trust in the brand. That takes time to earn that.
Right.
Um, and it's so, and my point is that's so far removed from what's happening daily on an operational basis, you know.
Well, I
So
think, and that's part of, that's part of the problem, I think, because too
yeah,
many have used it as a transactional, and guilty
it's not.
as charged here. When I was in
Yep,
corporate, I did the same thing because I was kind of compelled to do that. But,
yep,
going back to a little bit about that, proving one's value to the organization, do you think that that customer experience as a group of people, because I know it's not shouldn't be a department in an organization. It should be embedded within the
right,
culture. But let's say in a lot of cases, it is a group or a department or a function. They're
yep,
unfairly held to be proving their value, because why doesn't that same apply to marketing, apply to IT, to operations? Why aren't
right.
they having to continually prove what they're delivering to the organization in terms of those financial metrics that you mentioned?
Um, yeah, I think it's, because our function is so much more cross-functional, and it involves helping everyone
Yeah.
across the organization to understand their involvement in the execution on the customer journey, and our relationship with the customer over their lifetime. It's hard, and it's new, and somehow we need to avoid falling in the trap where much like HR gets anything related to the employee dumped on them, and it's avoiding the trap of falling into where anything related to the customer gets dumped on them. It's recognizing, and this is where I think the responsibility gets really, really challenging. It's understanding the multi-dimensional and multifaceted nature of being a customer-centric organization, and it's helping to lead the change and educating everyone in the organization on what that is and what it means in terms of um, their responsibility and accountability. So, for example, one of the measures I use for customer centricity, and this is usually when I get that score of 9, I then have the leaders complete a 15 question, 3-dimensional scale of customer centricity called the CC score. It comes from a group based out of Switzerland. One dimension is vision, is leadership. The second is collaboration. The third is implementation. And generally, they do okay on leadership. I mean, when you say culture, it's more than just a mindset. It's more than this amorphous thing. It's based on your vision, your values, and your vision, your mission, your values, but it's also the set of operating practices and executing on that. So leadership is one part. Do we hold customer satisfaction as equally as we do our financial goals? That's pretty strong. Does management walk the walk as well as they talk the talk? Okay. So organizations tend to do okay on leadership. Now, when you get in collaboration is working across organizational silos to meet customer goals. Okay. Now we already know we're in trouble, right? It's mapping out does the entire organization understand the journey and their role in it. Now it just falls apart. So, and then market culture, based out of Australia, they have what's called the Market Responsiveness Index. It has 8 dimensions, and it includes cross-functional collaboration, empowerment, strategic alignment, customer insight, customer foresight, competitor insight, competitor foresight, and peripheral vision. So you ask me why it's so difficult, because it's our job to help engineer all that across the organization and to help each functional area. Because here's the other thing: you're not going to be able to, it's going to be really difficult for you to convince everyone, okay, we need to organize our organization along customer lines. It's no longer going to be marketing and finance and accounting and sales or otherwise. So our job is to get people across all those functional areas to understand what it truly means to be customer centric, to minimize the gap between where they think they are and where they actually are, and to help everyone in the organization to understand their responsibility in executing on the customer journey, as well as, and I think this is a more recent phenomenon, is understanding the financial impact. And this is where it helps to relinquish some of that. And I think this is where in the future, we're going to be able to maybe get a little more respect in the organization, is help everyone to understand the financial impact of failing to deliver on the customer journey while establishing accountability across the organization. Yeah. So in that way, we'll be able to shift that responsibility. And our role, it's more, the goal is to be more of a facilitative role. And to your point, not to be just adding another department, even if we are a department, but as a department, we're working across silos, working across departments. We're creating governance teams that are comprised of people from all parts of the organization. And it's helping everyone in the organization to understand how their individual actions, interactions as a department ultimately impact the customer, and not just impact transactional measures or satisfaction measures or, God forbid, NPS, but how it also impacts the organization financially, because then you're going to get their attention, right? Because most likely they're all measured by financial outcomes and not by customer outcomes, which is another thing. If we can get the organization to say, hey, as leaders, each one of you is evaluated on customer outcomes and on employee outcomes. I was having this conversation with someone a couple of days ago, and we talked about employee engagement and how it's been compartmentalized as an HR function. It's something we only measure once a year, but those are the people that are delivering your experience. Can you imagine if we only measured customer satisfaction or customer outcomes once a year and we made decisions on a daily basis about it? Yeah. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? But that's what we do every day with employee engagement.
And that kind of brings me back to something that I talk a bit about in the CX Pro training course, and that's the service profit chain. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
And
really and how are we doing on that 25 years later?
Well, that's it, and I do talk about systems thinking in my CX Pro class, which of course is a topic that I talked about at X Day, right? But these are concepts that have really relevance here to the business and CX today, but somehow they just got left behind. I'm trying to revive some of that. We had some not necessarily looking like questions here, but there's a comment here. Kendra says, a leadership says they understand the importance of the customer experience, but they don't provide a comprehensive process or adequate resources to allow for true customer centricity. Reminded me again of remember that Bain study that said 80% of, they did a study and they showed that 80% of leaders believe that they provide this superior customer experience, but yet when they were getting the feedback from the customers of those organizations, only 8% believe they were getting that. So that shows that huge gap. So how would you respond to that comment?
I'd say just like any other project proposal, unless you're able to demonstrate in the proposal the financial impact it's going to have on the organization, then you can expect to have those proposals rejected. Comes back to my initial discussion. We can no longer continue to talk about how important the customer is. They need to be at the center of everything that we do, and expect budgets to be approved based on that feeling, right? It can't just be based on the culture of the organization or how it feels. And this applies to initiatives for employees too. You've got to be able to put a number on it. You've got to be able to quantify it. You got to be able to demonstrate how, whether it's customer churn, how we're going to be reducing customer churn, and you're going to monetize that and say, okay, this is the issue. We can quantify it. This is what it's losing. It gets back to my discussion in the first 5 minutes. If you can go to them and say, I found a way that I can save the organization $5 million, and this is what it's going to take. Now you've got your attention. Now you've got their commitment. So I would challenge all CX leaders is any initiative, and that's why I like customer lifetime value. Break it down for me. Break it down in its minutia. Show me, quantify it. Be able to quantify everything here. And we've had this discussion recently as a faculty, is how do you make a business case for CX in every one of our 15 courses? And I zeroed in on the employee people. And I said, you can quantify whether it's through recruiting cost, whether it's through lower productivity, whether it's through, customer satisfaction scores lower that can be attributed to employee actions. There's a way to quantify everything in financial terms. And I think it's this change of mindset. Most of us got into, whether it's working with employees or customers, most of us got into this business not because of money, but because of the warm and fuzzy. It makes us feel good, right? But we've got to be able to think differently. We've got to, and in my mind, it makes it even more rewarding then. When I can put a dollar amount now on an improved journey or service recovery effort or whatever, it makes me feel even better about what I do. And the ability and to speak a different language, and my Chinese is pretty bad, and I should be much better by now, but it's really rewarding.
Well, I think what you're saying is, like any other function in the organization, if it were product development, going in and say, I've got this brand new idea for this product that we should build and sell, and that needs to be fully complete with how's that going to serve this organization, because what's it going to bring in the door? Because otherwise, without that, you're not going to get approved. You're not going to get budget for doing things like that.
Exactly.
I knew one organization in my history of organizations that I called them the most customer-centric organization I had ever encountered, dealt with, was a client of. And interestingly enough, they were a small enough company, so I don't know, maybe size and scalability has a factor here, but being a small company and having a very, very visionary leader, they were customer-centric to the core. And they had no role in the organization that called themselves a customer experience anything. It was just baked into that organization. And everybody in the organization, and I visited them several times, you could stop any employee in a hallway and ask them what they were doing and how that related to customers, and they would be happy to tell you all about that and how that really helped the organization. So I think getting to a point like that is really kind of nirvana, I suppose. But
I talked to the former chief marketing officer for Chick-fil-A. It was a couple years back, and a couple of things at Chick-fil-A. First of all, they're privately held, so they don't have that pressure, that short-term financial pressure put on them. And I don't even think they have a dedicated CX department, but it comes naturally because it's hardened into their culture, and it's hard, and it comes from the leadership. So, and I think this is why the hospitality industry has been so slow to embrace CX as a function, because I'm sure in their mind they feel they've done it. They've been doing it for years. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I know somebody who works for Chick-fil-A, is in the training and learning and development arena and stuff like that. And he actually worked with me in CX. And so, I don't think they have a dedicated CX person there, but you're right. If you go there, it's very apparent. There was another there's another comment that came in here. I want to make sure we capture this one too. And this one's from Nadia. Leadership talks CX, but does not walk CX, especially the lack of integration into business strategy of driving CX initiatives to drive business outcomes. There it is up on screen now.
Yeah, you're dead in the water. And I've run into consulting clients like this too. Very vocal leader, but then it doesn't go much farther than that, and they don't support the initiatives. And it kind of gets back to what I said about the complexity of being a customer-centric organization. It's this oversimplification. I think for leaders, it feels good to say it, and I'm sure in their mind, they're very inspiring, and everyone in the organization should know their role, right? Of what that takes.
Yeah.
I mean, I work with one organization, and I I don't want to quote it directly, but basically it was, best possible everyone, our customers should get best possible service, but there was no effort to understand what that meant. Who are our customers? What does that mean from their standpoint and their understanding? How does that translate in our operating practices? There was no discussion around that, but the leader continued to say that, but then they didn't walk the walk and walk the talk. And if you're if you're joining an organization like that, there's very little you can do to change that, right? I mean, that's a huge uphill battle.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's where the culture really takes hold there, and what you're talking about there is like the gap between what the intent is and the action that
right.
was to follow that intent.
Yeah, I mean, right? Yeah, if you walk into an organization, however, where they say, this is where we want to go, the customer is really important. This is, but we don't quite know how to get there. Can you help us find a way? Now that I'd walk into something like that, particularly if they said, and we're going to support you every step of the way. And hopefully they would even tell you financially what that might mean. And I know some people like that right now. In fact, one of our students who's graduated, moved on to a different organization. He was hired on as their initial head of CX. And, after 6 months in the job, he's got a governance team together. He has a budget to hire a team. Now that's exciting, and he's got, he has the control to really develop the CX function in an organization that wants to endeavors to be customer centric. And he knows he's got the support of the CEO and the C-suite. That's pretty. He's in the sweet spot, and he's brilliant. And I hope Raj knows who I'm talking about. This guy's a rock star, and he's gonna be huge in the industry in the years to come too. But when we think in our lifetime, how many jobs have you had where you felt you had that sense of empowerment and understanding of your vision, and you could just let her rip? I've had 2 jobs. I'm 62. I've had 2 jobs in my lifetime. And the most recent was at MSU and the opportunity to create CXM at MSU and the degree program. But those opportunities are rare. So
they are.
Yeah,
they are. And as I look back at my career, I've had probably 10, 15, 20 jobs, and I've had 2 opportunities that felt like that, where I had that, I was empowered like that. There was a question here from Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca. Yeah, I like that.
Short staff.
Yeah, Rebecca, and I've learned this the hard way. Find quick wins that have a financial impact. The best way for you to demonstrate that your function has value is, don't say, well, we're going to do some more planning, we're going to put together a governance team, this could take a year or 2. If they don't see the financial impact soon, then it's going to be really difficult for you to grow your team. But and I've got another industry colleague that's going through this right now, and I like this. He did a really good job learning across the organization, helping to educate everyone on their role and all this. And then he started going for the low-hanging fruit. Where can we get some quick wins? What are some things that we can correct now, we can build around, we can demonstrate our financial impact, and then you can go to the leadership and say, look what we did. Look how we generated a positive financial outcome. I want to do more. Here's my to-do list in the future. This is what I'm going to need, or we're going to need to get there. So build on what you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, I like that. One of the things I wanted to kind of circle back to when we were talking about the program at MSU, I have this sort of feeling intuitively that, as we talked about, people don't necessarily get into the CX role and into the CX field because, when they were 10 years old, they said, I want to grow up and be a CX professional. I got into it in very, serendipitous
I want to be a CXO. Yeah. Someday I want to grow up and be a CCO.
Yeah. But my feeling is that I think if people come at CX, they come from other areas of business first. In other words, that they've been, I was a business development manager. I actually I came out of the research and science field, so I think that gave me an advantage. What do you see from the folks that are especially like in the MSU program? Do they come with, other business backgrounds, and now they're kind of migrating into that because they feel they can really add something to that? They're excited about that.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that,
interesting. What I wanted to understand, maybe because of my background, I wanted to understand their motivations for getting to the degree, and it's a mixed bag. In fact, what really intrigues me, and it's not always about their background, it may be about where they are right now in their career. So it's not necessarily what did you do for your undergrad, because there are plenty of people who came from a liberal arts background and they end up in business or otherwise. What's really intriguing to me now in the composition of the student body is the first few cohorts, it was pretty predictable. You had leaders in CX, mostly specialists in CX, like they might, we had a journey lead from Ally Financial. We had a UX designer from Wolverine Worldwide. We had a patient experience manager from healthcare. So you'd say, okay, I get it. Some people want to rise up out of their present role, be able to now envision the whole CX function, perhaps rise into a leadership role in CX. What we're seeing more and more of, two things. One, people coming from totally not a CX background. We have one veterinarian enrolled in the program right now and 2 veterinarians applying in the fall. We've had a development manager for a nonprofit. We have a technical writer right now in the program. So what we're seeing more of is people, and this is really cool, people that want to build a customer-centric business model for their organization. And rather than going the MBA route, which most people go, they chose our degree for that, which is super, super cool. The second thing we're seeing is undergraduates who graduated in May and enrolled in August for our program. We had 4 of those students this year, including 3 students who graduated with a marketing undergrad from MSU. These are people who are excited by the industry and want a career in CX, and they went straight from their undergrad into our program to do it. So those are the things that I'm seeing. And then, of course, you've got senior, we still have some senior leaders in CX that, they want to fill out their skill set. They want to be current. They want to engage with people in their field. So you've got, I originally identified 3 personas. The fourth one really is this group that totally came out of nowhere. I never saw them coming, and they just want to create a customer-centric business model, no matter where they are. It could be we're seeing nonprofits, we're seeing government. We've had a couple of students from the federal government in the program. That's an uphill battle for them, creating a customer-centered business model. And that's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool.
Well, you know that you mentioned a couple of veterinarians in the program. I mean, there's a business right there where customer-centric behaviors are critical, and I can relate to that because I have a vet in the area that I use here, and they are without a doubt. I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't really need to go to your program. They probably were born that way, but I mean,
well, I hear they're doing good things at the. You brought up vets at the Veterans Administration. I hear they're doing good things, but I'm sure relative to what we're used to, you know, they lag behind. But yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, that could be stressful. But anyways. Yeah.
All right, I thought I had another question come up there. I know we're getting really close to time here. I thought there was another question there, but it kind of disappeared in the screen here. But thanks again. This has been really good to talk about this. I think there's a lot to be said about the education of people in the realm of CX, and you're in the leading edge of that and doing great things. And some of the things you've talked about here, I think, are really helpful to CX professionals. So thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Paulina, we do have a survey that we run usually and you'll pop it up on the screen there. There's this QR code for those listening, and go ahead and take that. Next month on Tuesday, November 26th, I think it is Tuesday, November 26th. Yep. My guest will be Mike Kendall, customer-centered innovation experience and design expert, and he will be discussing how to influence lasting change as a CX professional. So that should be another good discussion. Hope to see you all again next time. Maybe even see more of you next time. Thanks again. Take care, Tom. Raj, take care. And everybody else, see you later. Bye-bye. See you next month.
Take care.
Thanks, Tom. Bye.